Hey gang, and welcome back. These videos are brought to you by Card Conduit, the best place to sell your unused collection fast and easily. 401 Games, Canada's top shop for all your hobby and TCG needs. Dragon Shield, the strongest sleeves for your strongest decks. Moxfield, the easiest way to store and share your deck lists. And Foil Armor, flatten your foils fast. Muddstah wins the die roll and starts us off. He draws, playing an untapped Concealed Courtyard. Arches plays a Plains. Sammy's got a Forest. Max draws, playing an Ancient Tomb, and then taps it, taking 2 to cast a Helm of Awakening. All spells now cost 1 less. Metchu's got a Bloodstained Mire and ships it. Arch's land for turn is a Tainted Field, and he then casts Killian. He passes as his commander resolves. Sammy plays a Woodland Cemetery, and is able to cast a Badger Mole Cub for only 1 green. Muddstah in response cracks his Bloodstained Mire, finding an untapped Godless Shrine, and Sammy then continues by casting a Cryptolith Rite and passes. Max plays a Plains and casts Talisman of Conviction. He follows up with a Primal Amulet, further reducing his instants and sorceries by 1 colorless. Max then passes, and during the end step, Muddstah flashes in a Witherbloom Bearer. Matt's upkeep has him losing 1, making a fairy token, and then draws for turn. He plays an Exotic Orchard, and then casts a Skull Clamp. Once that's out, he casts Read the Bones, scrying 2, losing 2, and then drawing 2. He follows up with an Arcane Signet. Muddstah then goes to combat, hitting Sammy for 1 with the Witherbloom Bearer before passing to Arja. Arja's land for turn is a Silent Clearing, and he casts a Defacing Duskmage. He then casts Scourge Mark, and enchants it onto the Badger Mole Cub, and goads it with the Killian trigger. Going to combat, Killian then swings at Max, dealing 2, and Arja passes. Sammy's got a Command Tower, and then casts an Attempted Murder, paying 5 into the X, and targets the Witherbloom Bearer. He gets 2 evens and 3 odds, making 3 1/2 Stormcrow tokens, and puts 4 -1/-1 counters onto the Witherbloom Bearer, which is more than enough to deal with it. With nothing else, Sammy passes. Max drops a mountain and casts Improvisation Capstone. He hits Brass's bounty off of it, casting it and making 3 treasures. The capstone is then exiled, but with Paradigm he'll get to cast it again on his next turns, and he also adds 2 counters to the Primal Amulet for casting 2 spells. He passes after that. Muddstah's turn has him playing a Plains, and then paying enough to cast Silverquill, and passes. Arja draws, and plays a Turbulent Moor, and then casts Thalia, Heretic Cathar. Going to combat, he hits Max for 4, and passes. Sammy draws, playing a Twilight Mire, and then casts Witherbloom for the reduced cost. He follows up with Stensian Sanguinist, and then swings a Stormcrow token at Max. Max takes the 1, and the Prepared trigger goes on the stack, which has Muddstah casting Secure the Wastes for 2, and sacrifices a creature to copy it. He then pays 4 life to dismember, and sacrifices a Soldier token to copy that as well, hitting both the Sanguinist and Witherbloom. With much of his board destroyed, Sammy just passes turn. Max draws, and the Paradigm version of Improvisation Capstone triggers, casting the spell again. This time he hits a Pinnacle Monk, and he gets to return to hand Brass's bounty. Max then plays a Plains, and he casts Lorehold. He then cashes in 2 treasures to help cast a Glinthorn Buccaneer. Max then passes, and during the end step, Sammy casts Infernal Grasp to take out Silverquill, and loses 2. On Muddstah's upkeep, Max gets to discard a card and then draw a card with Lorehold's ability, and he's able to Miracle a Perch Protection. He chooses not to gift anything though, and instead just makes 4 birds. Muddstah then moves to his draw step, drawing a card, and plays a Swamp in his main phase. He then recasts Silverquill. Once his commander's out, he casts Swords to Plowshares, sacrificing a token to copy it, and targets Lorehold and the Badger Mole Cub. The creatures are then exiled, with Max and Sammy gaining some life. After that, Matt passes. Arja's got a Plains, and he casts Curse of Disturbance on Sammy. Arja then goes to the Glinthorn Buccaneer with the Killian trigger, and he then casts Savine's Reclamation and brings back the Scourge Mark, putting it on Silverquill. Going to combat, Arja then hits Sammy for 5 with Killian and Thalia, and passes turn. Sammy just draws, plays a forest, and recasts Witherbloom. Max draws, and his main phase has him casting the Capstone again, this time hitting Fury Storm, which unfortunately stays in exile. Max then recasts Lorehold, and going to combat, he swings the Buccaneer at Sammy. This is Max and Arja getting a zombie token, and Sammy then takes 2. Max ships it after that. Everyone takes 1 from the Glinthorn Buccaneer as Max rummages on Mathieu's upkeep thanks to Lorehold, and Max is able to miracle a Fated Clash, choosing Lorehold and Sammy's land creature. Arja responds to this with Path to Exile, and Lorehold then gets exiled with Max going to find a land, and the board is then mostly wiped. Matt then follows up by casting Bolas' Citadel, and he then plays a Silent Clearing off the top as his land for turn. He then casts Black Market, paying 5 life. He continues with Divine Visitation, paying another 5 life. And then Demonic Tutor, paying 2 more life. This has Matt tutoring for a card, and he passes turn after that. Arja draws and plays an Encroaching Wastes, and he then pays 1 white for an Esper Sentinel. He follows up by casting Herald of Amity. As it enters, he exiles his top 8, and he's able to put Ghoulish Impetus onto the Herald from its own trigger. Arja ships the turn after that. Sammy draws, and has the 1-2 combo of a Scoot Swarm, followed by a Field of the Dead. He only makes 1 insect token this time around, but the table is pretty afraid of his next turn. Max draws, and casts an Utfara Hellkite off the Capstone in his main phase. He then plays one of his favorite lands with a Spinerock Knoll, and hides away a card. Max then continues by casting Brass's Bounty, and he gets to copy it thanks to the Primal Wellspring having been transformed, making a ton of treasures. He then recasts Lorehold. Going to combat, before letting Max declare any attackers, Mathieu casts Snuff Out off the top and pays 4 life for it. He takes out Lorehold, and Mathieu pays the 1 for the Esper Sentinel trigger, and with no attackers, Max just passes. Matt draws, and casts a Reanimate on Silverquill in his main phase, losing some life, and then pays 3 life to cast Will of the Mardu off the top of his library. His commander's out, so he gets to both modes, making 3 tokens, and then deals 4 damage to Scoot Swarm. He then casts Path to Exile off the top of his library, losing 1 to exile the Utfara Hellkite. Matt then casts Breach the Multiverse, and he copies it with Silverquill's Casualty ability, sacrificing a token. It resolves, milling everyone for a bunch of cards, and he brings back an Ancient Gold Dragon, Thalia, the Stesnian Sanguinist, and off the first one. The second copy in turn gets him a Pinnacle Monk, Elish Norn Grand Cenobite, Elish Norn Mother of Machines, and the Scoot Swarm. The Pinnacle Monk in turn returns to hand Breach the Multiverse, and Mathieu then casts a Dark Ritual, and copies it by sacrificing the Pinnacle Monk. He then has enough mana to recast the Breach, and once more copies it with Casualty. The first Breach gets Shadrick's Silverquill, the Pinnacle Monk again, Kambal Profiteering Mayor, and an Orcish Bowmasters. We also realize that Sephiroth should have flipped because of Elish Norn Grand Cenobite taking out a bunch of creatures. The last Breach then gets Impulsivity from Max's graveyard, which in turn lets Mathieu cast Rise of the Eldrazi from Max's graveyard, and gives himself an extra turn. This has the table deciding to scoop it up, since Mathieu can likely recast Breach a few more times, and Mathieu has a game in the bag. Game review time. So I'm pretty sure Bolas' Citadel was very powerful in this game, like it always is, but I think the MVP, for me at least, was Silverquill. What really allowed Mathieu to win was being able to copy every spell that he cast, basically. He had a ton of creatures on the field, and getting 2 copies of Breach the Multiverse, not to mention recurring it and potentially doing it at least 2 more times in a turn, is just bonkers. The part I love about this combo the most is the fact that he wouldn't have been able to do it had it not been for everyone else's creatures, mainly the Pinnacle Monk. And I love to see people being able to win with other people's cards. I think it's just great. This video wouldn't be possible without the help from my sponsors, but it definitely wouldn't be possible without the help from you, the viewers, and my patrons. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and to remember, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.